I love your analogies. What did you say, Swiss Army knife that we're in right now? I completely agree. So, as I had mentioned, this live is interactive and dynamic, and thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourself in the comments. I have a question for you that relates a lot to the question I asked Marnie, and I really want to know from you, what are your challenges with employee communications? Just type, a few words in the comments, and we're going to go ahead and talk to Troy right now. But then after Troy's done, we're going to come back to your comments and see what everybody said. So welcome, Troy. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you.
So I'd like to know, what are the most impactful or important part of employee communications, and why should we be concerned about really getting it right?
Well, first off, I loved what Marnie had to share around some of the conceptual ideas. I'll probably further on some of those, but if I was to prioritize three, they would be frequency, effectiveness, and personalization. There was a study that was actually conducted by the Stanford Graduate School of Business that suggested that leaders who under-communicated are nearly 10 times, that's a big number, 10 times more likely to be criticized by those who over-communicate. So first off, we're talking about effectiveness, right, or frequency. And then another study by Gartner actually found that effective communication leads to a 40% increase in employee productivity and their commitment. Now, the key here is effective. Whether communication is short and frequent or long and less frequent, it should be clear, concise, and meaningful to the recipient. So I'd like you to think about it this way for just a second. Employee communication is like the bloodstream of any organization. And like the body, when it's flowing well, everything functions smoothly. But as soon as there's like a blockage, you actually begin to experience cardiac failure. I mean, this is serious stuff. And so keeping in mind that theme, the heart of an organization is really its people, and keeping that in lockstep with what is going on within the organization and is more than just an important task. It's really critical, and it needs to be a priority. So the question is, how do you do this most efficiently and effectively, right? So I think we need to start by discussing the glaringly obvious. The way people are actually working today is simply very different than they did just before the pandemic. And so as we choose to kind of stick our heads in the sand, as I'm seeing so many people do, or really just avoid dealing with the fact that things are different, I see that as a real opportunity for those of you that are on this webinar to actually take this head on and figure out ways to support employees in our new environment. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 27% of the workforce is now remote. Okay, that's pretty significant. But I've also read some other studies that with hybrid and flexible work, it's upwards of 50%. Which, regardless of the number that you're using, it's a massive number and it's only growing. And so this leaves us with a very real need to approach employee communication in a new way, right? And to further complicate that, there are 5 generations in the workforce, right? And so when you consider this diverse and composition of the modern workforce, we simply cannot ignore the statistics that emphasize that this is a generational blend that is different, that we've never seen before. Now, I was also reading another study that was talking about, and it was through Office R&D, which explained how generational differences actually influence attitudes and behaviors and communication styles, impacting team dynamics in a way, again, that we've never seen, but overall can affect business operations and performance. And then additionally, I just keep throwing a few of these out there because I think it's important. SHRM actually stated that nearly 74% of the workforce will be composed of millennials and Gen Z by 2030. So that's only 6 years from now, right? So you can see our current strategy will need to evolve quickly, and further underscores the urgency for HR leaders to not only speak fluently in emojis and hashtags, but also balance that with a more traditional communication approach in the interim, right? And I would ask, does this sound daunting to anybody? Of course it does, right? It's a big task. I mean, can you imagine an HR team of one attempting to really fine tune their message to effectively reach 5 generations, right? 5 different generations. It would be like a DJ trying to please a crowd in a concert that spans fans of Bing Crosby, Elvis Presley, Bob Marley, Whitney Houston, and of course, T Swift, right? All in the same night. And guess what? Everybody wants to hear their favorite jam. The good news is that AI can help you, folks. It really can. And there's a lot of ways that it can help you hear and engage with your employees in a more personal way. So that's my thoughts on that.
Well, both Troy and Marnie know that I love statistics and I love analogies. So I know that Troy was just throwing them out there, and they're all good statistics and they're all great analogies. And of course, Troy, you had to mention my favorite, Taylor Swift. One of the things that I caught that was really interesting that you said is that the 5 generations. So we have boomers, and I mix up because I know they go along with the alphabet, right? So boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and alphas, right? Alphas are the next.
Alphas is brand new.
Yep. Well, what about betas? I'm thinking like the future of work. Like I know my kids, I don't think they have any desire to go to college because they think that they're going to, just jumpstart right out of high school with being able to take online classes or jump right in the workforce. So that's going to be 6 generations in the workforce. Is that possible? That's crazy.
Yeah, I do think it's possible, but I do think that there will be a large gap in professional types of jobs for that younger generation actually connecting with the boomers. But I do think it's, obviously there'll be a very remnant of those still left that are, and probably not working by choice, to be honest about it. Those people are probably working because they have to.
And that's interesting. Like I can see the betas calling all the boomers bruh. Bruh.
Yeah, why not, right?
My kids call me bruh, and I told them like I'm not bruh. Oh, well, let's check in with our audience because we asked the question, what are the biggest challenges for you in your employee communications? And we've got some answers here. So let's see. We had so many. There we go. Okay, so Dave said, making sure that communications are accurate, a la Air Canada. That's hilarious because I was just talking with Alex Kuchev yesterday, and he brought up Air Canada. I'm like, oh my God, decided what happened with Air Canada and giving away if you guys don't know, AI, they put up a chat bot. They didn't really test it a lot. And the chatbot gave a very large refund to one of the customers that they said that management said that they weren't supposed to get. So, and of course, the courts are siding with them. So the courts are siding with the customer. So good job, courts. I wanted to go to some of the other comments we had from Sydney. The people are the foundation. Oh, we went over this one. I flashed it when Troy was talking. The people are the foundation and the heart of our companies. Completely agree, Sydney. And then from Rain, Gen Alpha isn't in the workforce yet. The oldest Gen Alpha is 11 this year. Oh, thanks, Rain. Appreciate that. So, but we still have 5 generations in the workforce, correct?
Yes.
And then from Jamie, communication is huge. Challenges we see are mainly access to and limitations and no consistent time to check in, so to speak, with leadership. Completely agree with that. And then, we had a question about the comment from Rain, unless I'm understanding the 5 generations note. And then from Allison, describing and naming generations is useful to a point. I think this is a good point. Important to remember that these are generalizations and there's lots of overlap. Agreed.
Yeah, and I think your strategy has to approach that as well, understanding that just because they're a boomer doesn't mean that they don't know how to turn on their computer. That's not a fair assessment. I know plenty of boomers that are great with their computer. I just think you have to account for everybody's preferences, and that's a challenge, right?
Agreed. And there was something I was reading in the news the other day that said it was an AI myth, and it said that just because you're tech savvy doesn't mean you know everything about AI.
100%.
100%. Absolutely. So audience, back to you. I've got another question for you that had a lot to do with what Troy was talking about. And I want to know, what is the most impactful, in your opinion, what's the most impactful part of employee communications? Go ahead and add your answers to the comments. I'm going to ask another question to Marnie, and then we'll jump right into your comments as well. So Marnie, why is it necessary to evolve employee benefits communications? And is Gen Z, as we were just talking about the generations, driving this evolution? What do you think?
Oof, it's mission critical that we need to evolve our communications, because right now, particularly if you think of like benefits comms, the system's just too complex to navigate right now. So our traditional communications really over-indexed on jargon and then under-delivered on context and clarity. Gallup actually says that 58% of the employees still feel in the dark when it comes to benefits communication. So I thought that was interesting. But there's also a desire for that personalization that persists here as well. Having AI generate custom walkthroughs for employees based on where they are in their work life. So when I think about that with Gen Z coming into the workforce, I mean, yes, they're growing in numbers and they're also growing in influence, in their organizations. So I think the timing is there for them to drive some of that evolution, just as they're coming into the workforce and companies are starting to evolve their communication strategies and workplace policies. So although all generations are evolving with it, we have seen more expectations around transparency, authenticity, social responsibility. There's also been a big emphasis on work-life balance. There's less of the live to work, more of the work to live. And the concept of whole employee engagement is huge right now. We're hiring diverse workforces. Now, how do we care for their whole well-being, whether it's through mental health resources, financial literacy education? And I don't know about you, but I'm not an expert on those things. So the advent of technology and communication tools help us actually educate and walk alongside our teams in a more scalable fashion than before.
Thank you, Marnie. I've read a lot where, to your point, AI is going to help people leaders to deliver personalization at scale. And we've been reaching for trying to get personalization at scale for like 5 years now, maybe even before that. So I'm really hoping that prediction, so to speak, does come true. I'm going to go quickly to the comments because I asked that question about in your opinion, what is the most impactful part of employee communications? And we've got some answers coming in and one question. So Dr. Kim actually has a question, and he says, when each employee is assigned a personalized AI mentor, who will manage that? That's a good question. I think that's also a good answer to the impactful, what is the most impactful for you as well. Dr. Kim, we're going to come back to that question in just a minute. And then Kristen said transparency is the most impactful, and 100% agree with that. And then we have a question from Hilda Vermillion, and she asks, how much of our personal information does the AI need in order to fine-tune how it disseminates information to us? What is the balance between protecting our privacy and making communication personally meaningful? Oh, wow, that's a really hard nut to crack. So I'm going to ask Marnie first off. Marnie, did you want to answer Hilda's question?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in this area yet, Hilda. I'm curious about it, but I think it does depend on, and this is where the role of creating really strong AI policies for organizations. So for instance, if you're bringing in technology that's more proprietary, that the company, the software platform or the technology, you don't own it, you have to be really clear on what data and what personal information you're putting in. There's also the idea of, I think of accepting your personal information. So we talk about those chat box that walk through life stages. Well, that information, that's the data going in. Is that something the employee's putting in, or is that something that the company is putting in, and making sure there's transparency in that respect? There's a ton of considerations going from, the generative AI to proprietary AI that works in tandem with your current tech stack, then going to a white label program and what data they're getting. So that's a big piece. If you're working with this technology and you're adopting this technology, you have to be super clear in the contract of what data they're getting and what that output is based on that data.
Yeah, I agree with that, because you don't want a mishap, like similar to what happened with Air Canada, and especially with your employee population. Troy, did you want to add anything? And yes, audience, Troy and Hilda are related. So just to throw that out there. Troy, did you want to add anything about Hilda's question that Marnie said?
First off, my wife asks great questions in real life too. She's a very curious person. So I think not only do we need to strike a balance between it, I think that depending on the use case for AI, it may not need all of your information to basically, make it super personalized to you. A lot of times there's some indicators that you can put in that can be, based on like a wizard or a decision support tool or something like that, that can give your preferences without giving your name or information a lot of times. And so there's ways around that for AI to take the data it has and form it in such a way that you don't walk away from it knowing that your personal information, like for instance, like claims information or, PII or something is actually in their system and would retain that. So there's ways around that. But I do think that it's a consideration that has to be made as, like I just saw Microsoft add Copilot to everything as an example. Okay, is it paying attention to everything that I'm writing? Where is that going? Where is it being secured, right? Because that's my information. So I think there are concerns about it. I do think that a lot of the generative AI solutions that are out there, they need your data in order to actually formulate a lot of what you would say would be meaningful information, but you can limit that data. So I think there's a couple ways you could go about it, but that's definitely a concern, huge concern.
Thanks, Troy. Yeah, I agree. Is that you can generalize, and so to Troy's point, even if you're working at an organization, we're not there yet with the data privacy and the cybersecurity. I mean, we're hoping to get there. That's one of the things that I think is really important for human resource leaders in 2024, but we're not there yet. So just to be very, very cautious and careful. And I would say, don't put anything out on an AI generated system, because as Troy said, it needs your data to populate. It needs your data to learn from. So don't put anything out that you wouldn't put, let's say, on like Facebook or Twitter. So very similar, very similar. So we're getting a lot of comments coming in, but I wanted to go back to Dr. Kim's question before we move on with our questions for our experts. So Dr. Kim had asked predictably, when each employee is assigned a personalized AI mentor, who will manage that? That's what do you think, Marnie? Who is going to manage that?
I think I would have clarifying questions, with that too. It depends on, for instance, if I talk about the one-on-one coaching in Slack, that who monitors that. I think it really, in my mind, is falling on the HR individuals, and it depends on the use case, but there is, and I've mentioned in our other conversations, there's going to be this increase in skill set and training around not just how to prompt very strongly, but how do we audit, this information? How do we actually maintain the integrity of what we're trying to do as a business? And I think that that's going to be a skill set that not only HR has to adopt, but HR has to get training programs spun up for the rest of their team and their skill set spruced up, so that they're not the only ones auditing this information and owning this information. But we got a long ways to go with that.
Thanks, Marnie. Troy, what do you have to add?
I go back to Marnie's comment. It depends on the use case. Should it roll up to IT because it's something that's within their purview, or is it something that HR has to deal with? If we're talking about employee communication, that's probably going to fall under HR. And so I think making sure that you're readily equipped as the HR leader within your organization, that you're coaching people up on how to leverage the tools. Maybe you have a team, as an example, making sure that they're able to, I guess, help with some of that heavy lifting and mentoring people through the process. A good example of that would be like a decision support tool, right? Like some of those have more capabilities than others. Like I think that would be a very small one because it's got a very specific use. But if you're just talking about general AI, I mean, that's going to span their day-to-day operations. Like, hey, I'm in sales, or I'm a senior executive. I'm using AI to help me do X, Y, or Z. Well, I don't think that all rolls up to HR unless I'm using it in a way that would be illegal, or I'm misappropriating it in some way. I think that there's going to have to be ownership at an executive level on how you're going to do that. And then on the HR side of things, creating policies that will be able to effectively leverage AI within your business with its business applications.
So I'm going to add my 2 cents here, and I'm not going to agree but disagree with you, Troy. I think that going legal, I think legal should be in legal's hands, and policy making on this should be between a partnership between executives, HR, and IT. And then I also think the individual has to jump in there too with some responsibility. I'm a futurist, and I think that, if we're looking into the future and we're talking about, really being serious about upskilling our people, this is an area where if we empower them with the tools and we say, hey, now you manage this. We've inputted everything that we need to input for employee communications. You're responsible. I do think people won't be afraid of it. I think they're going to take on and feel empowered. But to Marnie's point, you need to have the training. You need to have the systems set in place to really empower people to do it. Because if we don't, they're never going to do it. And they're still going to be worried, and they're still going to have fear, and we're never going to get through to the digital transformation and the change that we truly want to. So again, didn't agree. So just my 2 cents. Marnie, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I do have one more, and this made me, I love this conversation, by the way. So thank you, for the comments and the questions. But I was thinking in the World Economic Forum this year, there was a big, of course, focus on AI and how it's transforming the workplace, et cetera, but there was also a really heavy lean on the importance of creative thinking, leadership, and curiosity. Now, all of these things are innate human needs. So the understanding of when does AI hand off to the human centricity of what we do and how we interact with each other is going to be huge. So, those human traits still very much exist in a strong communication strategy.
Yeah, fantastic. Dr. Kim, you really sparked a conversation here, because I just threw up 3 comments of opinions people have of different ways that this should be, handled. And then this is LinkedIn user, but this is Mindy Honkoop from Texas. She's part of Progressive HR Family, some of our advisors. And Mindy says, yes, a co-shared approach. To do that, we do need to actually have a trusted workplace environment. That is true. We also need to be human-centric, as Marnie said. We also need to provide them with the guardrails, as Troy said, and clarity on the room that they have to play in, exactly. And the training of how to utilize the tools with the guardrails and the organization has said. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's like a huge undertaking. And I think that, again, anybody that is breaching, this is not a topic for just one live. So of course we're going to have another live in a few months to talk a little bit more about employee communications. But I think this is a conversation we need to be having. And thank you everybody for being here to have this conversation. And thank you to Marnie and Troy for really just putting yourselves out there and talking about this very, very freely. Because as Marnie mentioned, I mean, Davos, like there's so many different opinions and so many different perspectives. I think we all just need to get in a room and support each other with our own opinions and our ideas. Kate says it has to be a partnership between key leaders and departments. It cannot only fall under HR. Agreed. Marnie and Troy, before we go on to the next question, any lasting comments on that question from Dr. Kim?
No, great.
No, yeah, it was a really great question. I think I'll add one thing to it is that there's over 1,000 HR or AI tools right now that are available in the marketplace. And you talked about like, how do we maybe shortlist those within an organization, Coreyne? That's a very daunting task. And so I think what you have to do is have a process for looking at the use case for AI within your business and like whether it's IT departments or HR departments to be proactive in that process. I would like to use this tool and then have a process for investigating those with your IT department or senior leadership to see, is this business application worth, spending our time and investing, our resources into it. Some of them are free. Everybody's familiar with ChatGPT, right? That's the big one. But some of them aren't free. But the use case is powerful enough that a team that is maybe short on resources, short on man hours or woman hours, right? It can use these sorts of tools to really significantly impact. And I have some statistics around that, but I do think you got to have a really good process because with 1,000+ tools and more being added daily, it's going to be hard to figure out which ones are the best fit for you if you don't have a process for that, of kind of getting those approved. Because I've seen some, companies say no. Like, no, we're saying no to everything. And then I've seen other companies not have any fences to it. And I think the right answer is somewhere in the middle.
No, I think spot on. Absolutely. And thank you for voicing that, Troy. That's one thing that hasn't been brought up yet is the enormity of what we have out there as resources. As Christine Zapata said, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And how do you figure it all out? Well, we're going to try to help you with that a little bit later on in our conversation. Just a little bit. All right, everybody, I'm going to kind of like move the conversation a little bit towards benefits communications in human resources. So my question to Troy is, what impact does evolution of benefits communications have on HR? Because we just started talking about all the heavy lifting that HR has to do. And hopefully with a partnership with IT and executives. But really, employee benefits. Tell us a little bit more about how that affects HR.
Yeah, first off, great question. To all of you that are listening, it's a huge workload that we're talking about that you have to essentially, I think you have to break it into smaller pieces to do it effectively. But when you consider all of it has been dumped on your department, right, over the last few years, it's daunting. And I have a lot of compassion for your predicament, right? It's a lot. So I think what we have to do is embrace complexity in some way. So let me kind of give you an analogy that might be helpful. Think of employee benefits like a Rubik's Cube, those colorful little cubes. I've never solved one, so I'm not that bright. But at the end of the day, every twist and every turn is like adding another offering, changing a plan, increasing a deductible, implementing a wellness program, adding a new technology, whatever it is, right? And HR, you're like those, speed cubers. But at the end of it, when you're done solving the puzzle, you don't get an applause, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times you get a ton of emails because people are like, how do I sign up for that tax saving thingy again? Because they don't even know the terminology. They don't get it, right? And so I have a lot of compassion for you, right? We know this because people just tend to only listen to about half of what's going on during those hour-long meetings, right? During the open enrollment process. And so I feel what y'all are going through. And I think that there's a lot of ways to actually simplify employee benefits communication. And I believe it's paramount that we do so because it's such a big part of what a company invests their resources in, right? And I know it's a huge lift, but the impact of a intentional and well thought out benefits strategy will have incredible benefits for you, your employees, and the company. In fact, there's actually a few insights I was thinking about of how machine learning and AI are actually doing that. And so one of the ways is really, here's a statistic for you that puts the issue of kind of benefit literacy in perspective. There was a survey done by Business Solver a couple of years ago that actually found that 88% of employees or American employees fail to actually correctly understand the 4 basic health insurance terms. This would be like deductible, copay, co-insurance, max out of pocket. And so this gap in understanding serves to highlight how critical effective communication can be in the realm of benefits. And I can tell you that what we've been doing is just not working, right? If 88% of people don't understand it, part of it falls on the insurance industry being so dang confusing. It's kind of built that way, so you need people for it. Unfortunately, you and I are not going to change that, so we have to live within the realm of where we're at. But you might be asking, is there a solution? And I think luckily with AI, we can take this complex world and translate the world of benefits into a simpler kind of format, simpler terms that people can actually understand. For example, I was mentioning the decision support tools earlier that can help employees understand their options and actually make informed decisions. Again, you don't need to put all your data in there to do that. It can walk them through step by step, asking the right and thoughtful questions, right? The other thing I'm seeing is AI-enabled chatbots, right? That can assist with answering employee questions. So basically the employee says, well, I've got questions about this. And it actually pulls your documentation and will answer those questions in a more conversational type way, providing, personalization in their onboarding experience and answer those one-off questions, and really directing people to all the resources that you're curated in one place where people just don't know how to navigate it. So all in all, I believe that the problems that exist today around benefits communication and literacy, as well as administrative burden, because it's a lot on y'all, can be solved by implementing a strategy with AI and workflow automation. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Troy. So I'm going to do a quick ad here for our next employee communications in 2024 live. That will be in April 11th and same time as this communications live. And then after this live, I'm going to go ahead and put up the event page on LinkedIn. But if you want me to send you a personalized or an individualized invitation to this live, making sure that you've got the link, go ahead and type yes in the comments right now. And as soon as I put that event page up, I'll go ahead and send that directly to you via LinkedIn message. The link I'll send you via LinkedIn message. And with that, I'm going to go a little bit more into thanking our sponsors, taking a little break here on our questions. And then I want to talk a little bit about how Dayforce is helping to bring AI to HR and employee communications. So, Dayforce is an important core human capital management system that we have. It is a global human capital management system. And so it has a lot of resources for their HR clients and their partners around the world. So a little bit more about Dayforce. Dayforce acquisition of Illumi, if you haven't heard yet, enables the seamless and end-to-end LMS and LXP experience. It includes machine learning. We've been talking about that today, and intelligent innovations like a powerful AI co-writer that augments content authoring and engaging employee communications. Together with Illumi, Dayforce is well positioned to help their customers accelerate the learning and development, the upskilling outcomes, and the important communications for their people, and all while creating an impactful employee experience, which is extremely important for everyone. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Dayforce innovations in their core human capital management software that they are pioneering, go ahead and visit www.dayforce.com. They are just changed their name from Dayforce or from Ceridian to Dayforce. So if you do also look up Ceridian, that will also be Dayforce. So thank you so much, Dayforce, for sponsoring our live today. With that, I'm going to move to our next sponsor, which is Hyland. And Troy's got a little bit of information about Hyland for our audience. Over to you, Troy.
Yeah, thank you. So at Hyland, we understand HR teams are really the unsung heroes of the workforce. So when you think of kind of Hyland, imagine us as kind of your trusted sidekick or back office in a lot of ways, doing a lot of the heavy lifting so you don't have to. We're really an extension of your department, your team, proactively really evaluating, negotiating, implementing, and helping you configure tailored benefits communication strategies, as we're talking about today, to really just cut through the noise and make you look like the rock star you are. You're the hero of the story, not us, but we want to help you with that, right? Every good hero has a sidekick, right? So we want to be your sidekick in that. So our focus is really to help you deliver innovative solutions, really saving you time and resources. And then lastly, just really allowing you to focus on growing your people. Like all this administrivia is nobody enjoys it. And if you do, HR may not be the best, industry for you to be in, because I think HR is evolving. It's changing. It's about the people, right? And so if we can put you in front of the people more often and less buried under administration, I think that's a good thing. So the nice thing about working with us, it's about you. It's not about us, right? No quoting, no data retrievals or spreadsheets to work with us, just better service strategy and resources. So
thanks, Troy. Thanks for telling us a little bit more about Hyland. So audience, another thing that I wanted to talk about before we move on to our questions is that Marnie and Troy have very graciously put together some resources for everybody that has signed up for this live. We plan on emailing those two resources to you. One is a prompting guide, employee communications prompting guide that Marnie has created with Vibe HRC. And then another one is also a guide in employee communications that Troy had, and it's an ebook on employee communications and getting it right that Troy has created. Both of those resources will email to everybody that signed up here at the live. That email will come out in the next day or so. There is a lot of people that have signed up, so it's going to take us a little while. But if you want both resources, like today, go ahead and type yes in the comments, and the Progressive HR team will get those to you again in a LinkedIn message. Thank you, everybody. So let's get back into the next 15 minutes with some more questions. This question is for both Marnie and Troy. And we've already talked a little bit about this, but I want to kind of go deeper into how AI can help HR and what role AI plays with involving employee communications. And adding to that, I'd like you each to tell me a little bit about how you're using AI and with employee communications for action items with your clients. So let's start with Marnie. Marnie, I know that was a lot, but let us know.
Okay. If I get lost, I'll ask for alignment questions. But with AI and how I thought it was interesting with the Josh Berzin 2024 predictions that he comes out with, because the number one was that AI will change every part of human resources and every role within a company. I mean, that's spot on, right? That's employee communications is a part of that. And to Troy alluded to this. The content itself is already ramped up, right? We're spending less time on the nuts and bolts and spending a little more time on crafting really compelling narratives, right? What is the value proposition for the communication that I'm giving you, all in that vein of cutting through the noise, right? And also there's been a big focus on that skill set piece, as I was mentioning before, of how do we get really strong at prompting? What does that actually look like? What data is going into the AI to generate that messaging? Is it the tone that I'm looking for? Does it align with our core message? Is it biased? Is it relevant? And then being able to say, okay, this information coming out, do we have a case of, the body snatchers? We no longer sound like we wanted to sound, and we don't have the values that we wanted to value. So how are we infusing our employee branding and our language into these AI tools. So that's where I think that there's this ongoing conversation with AI and how we use it while keeping our own sense of company self. And so, the way that I work with clients is, I work predominantly with small to medium-sized business. So a lot of startups and scale-ups. So they have limited time, limited bandwidth, limited staff, or even interest level in getting into these things. So a lot of time that I've spent, particularly with the communication pieces, on that content creation, right? And just using tools like ChatGPT and Claude. I consider those kind of the DIY aspect of AI, making sure everything, of course, is anonymized or not proprietary in that respect. But I'll give an example. Going into an employee survey run. Okay, let's draft up a communication matrix ahead of that. What does that drip campaign look like? How do we synthesize that anonymized, open-ended data to make sure that I'm catching all the themes and no holes that I may have missed without it? And then communicating out that action plan, because we all know the action plan is the most important part of an employee survey. So moving into 2024, just looking at how do we eliminate the shiny penny syndrome. There's as many AI companies that are spinning up that are going away or being acquired by something else. So making sure that we're not just going out and purchasing all these platforms willy-nilly, thinking that they're going to make our lives better. So then from there, we can look at, okay, what proprietary AI is out there that does make sense with our HR tech stack? And then from there, moving to, okay, is there a white label solution that we want to lean into? All while preserving the brand and voice. So it's evolving as we speak, that involvement of kind of that back end DIY to more strategic AI approach.
Yep.
No, go ahead, Troy. I was going to say something, but go ahead, jump in.
It was a resounding yes.
It's all about you guys.
Exclamation point. Yes, exclamation point. You nailed it, Marnie. I think that you're right. There's not a one solution that can solve all of your problems yet, right? And I love the fact that you pointed that out. So it's really finding the areas where it can add that operational efficiency that we're talking about, so that you can be strategic about your planning, right? It can even help you plan. If you're not a creative person, as an example, like AI can help you be more creative. You're like, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over. Well, you are. That's how we learn. You just got to say the same thing over and over time. But at the end of the day, it's how many different ways can you say that so that maybe I capture what it is that you're trying to convey to me, right? And that's the challenge of every HR leader, is that you don't have a population of robots, right? You have a population of real people that prefer to see information in their own way. And so, because there's not a one size fits all, that you as an HR leader shouldn't apply a one size fits all to the way you're doing things as well. And so I don't know if you want me to jump into my examples, but I definitely wanted to respond to Marnie's there because I thought it was good.
No, I was just going to add to Marnie's is that, Marnie's right. There is something out there for every single person, for every size organization, for every industry. There's so much out there.
Yep. And
to her point as well, don't just go for the shiny penny, but experiment. Mm-hmm. There's so much out there that people are offering things for trials and experimentation. And there is the DIY like ChatGPT to the white label. And if anybody has any white label recommendations, go ahead and add those in the comments. But Troy, I'm going to go ahead and have you take over there.
Yeah. I think there's a few different levels of kind of dipping your toe in the water when it comes to AI, right? So one of at the very basic level, everybody's aware of ChatGPT. If you're not, you should be. But if you're not, there's other alternatives to I personally don't like ChatGPT. I like Jasper a little better. I like it personally because Jasper can it has this brand voice that you can build. So you can basically curate your voice and then use the AI to supercharge your speed to execution, right? It's a really easy way to do it. So you can create one-off, personalized emails or documents or things like that. I think another great example of that, and here's an actual solution you can check out, is called GPT Trainer. And literally, it's a chatbot that you can create using your own data and resources and information to answer employee benefits questions in a conversational way. I think it's really important that you make it conversational, especially for the next generation. That they don't want to sit down in an office, and they just want quick answers, and they want to be able to use their phone. And so things are definitely changing. But you can direct people to those resources that you've spent so much time and effort curating. I think that's really important. Let's not just throw everything away that you've created, right? And this saves you and your team a lot of time and energy, and it actually creates a more engaging experience for the individual, right? And then if you want to take it a step further, and this is what I'm a big believer of, is how do we create workflow automation? So let's use generative AI to create a entire series of things, not just to get stuck on, well, I want to create one thing at a time. Well, if you create these workflows with the right prompting, and Marnie's got some great prompts she's going to share with you, but you can create a workflow of information based on maybe a presentation that you did. So you spend an hour putting together this presentation, right? How do we take that and then curate a bunch of information off of it? So you can take the show notes from all the things that you shared, and now that the show notes can go into one workflow that will create social media resources. It will create text reminders. It will create, it'll deploy it into your chat bot, right? So you can use it. You can create pulse surveys, and all off of one communication that you did. And so you put all this heavy lifting into one thing a month, right? As far as like, let me get all my thoughts into that. And you can use AI to help you with that. And then you take all of that and it curates all of these things automatically with the proper workflows. And that's what I'm a big believer of. So how can AI help HR? I think is the question, right? The list is super long. And the best news is that with very little help, you can access these things today, really.
And just to kind of take care of that last part of the sentence, what do you use with your clients, and what type of clients do you work with? Because it's really important to give, I believe, when we're doing these types of events, to really give concrete examples. So everyone learns, not just generalization. So tell us a little bit more about your clients and what you're working on with them.
Well, let me kind of kick that off with a thought and around a statistic. So we've talked about some of the efficiencies you can get from this stuff, right? And there was a study done by McKinsey that estimates that 56% of the typical hire, retire to retire tasks can be automated with current technologies and with limited process changes. So I've talked a lot about this heavy lifting. You don't have to do much to kind of get your things moving in the right direction, right? And so this is what I'm actually helping my clients accomplish. And their leadership absolutely loves them for it, because they're able to do more than they've ever been able to do before. In fact, AI continues to evolve and be more integrated in the HR process. And I think it's essential for you to continue to learn in these areas. So I'm helping I'm going to focus on one thing. I'm helping my clients become AI prompt engineers and workflow operators in a way that allows them to harness the power of AI. One person can actually construct intricate workflows that automate routine tasks and generate mission critical items that span much more than just employee communication. I know we're talking a lot about employee communication because this is such an easy one to talk about with AI right now, but I'm talking about job descriptions, policies, performance appraisals, offer letters, onboarding documents, and so much more. And I'm talking turning just a couple hours of work into weeks worth of actual effort, right? And so the result is that HR professionals can focus again on higher level tasks that are, not only mission critical, but they're actually timely, right? You have a certain amount of time to do these things. So what I find is, like, during the open enrollment season, people are working 15-hour days because they have to. Because unfortunately, it's like the Super Bowl. You got to get it done. Like the clock is ticking, right? And so hopefully AI can help you take a couple more vacations, while the robots do some of the heavy lifting for you, right? And so that's one way that I'm helping people engage, with AI in a way that's meaningful to their bottom line, to their day-to-day, sorts of things. So my question is, if 56% of these tasks can be automated in your hire retire processes, where do you stand today on that spectrum? Like, are you at 10%, 0%? It's okay. Everybody starts somewhere, right? So, and if you're unsure, I'm happy to help. Just let me know. I'll show you where to look. I'll teach you where to go and how to do it.
Thanks, Troy. And that kind of leads into my last interactive question with the audience. Audience, what are you currently using AI or machine learning or generative AI for in your business or in your organizations, or individually as well, or personally? And while you're all are adding that to the comments, I am going to quickly show the essay that Mindy wrote here. And thank you, Mindy. Thank you so much for adding to this conversation. And apologies, Troy, that's covering your face. So Marnie Robbins, there, thank you.
I'm here.
You're here. Yeah, actually peek up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, now we can see. Marnie Robbins and Troy well stated, having a co-shared digital workplace strategy that supports the business strategy is key. Having an HR voice that helps map out how digital touch points truly improve or hinder employees' ability to do their work and their satisfaction in doing that. A good digital workplace footprint helps streamline, drive organizational alignment, create an integrated experience, build a centralized knowledge management, create workflow automation, change resiliency, and adaptability. And then also, oh, sorry, I thought this was Mindy as well. So, but Michael says, learning and content development, that was for the question we had asked. And then, okay, everybody, so we are going to wrap up here because we got an hour, about 2 minutes or so. Very quickly, before we go into our last comments, I wanted to thank our sponsors again, Dayforce and Hyland, for helping us put together this employee communications in 2024 AI and HR series. We are going to have another live like this April 11th, and that event page will go up after this conversation. So if there's anybody that you think would derive value from the conversation that we had today, or just have an enjoyable time watching the live, go ahead and share the post or the live replay with them, and hopefully they will also comment and enjoy the conversation. And then I also want to say thank you so much, Marnie and Troy, for joining me and sharing your time and your talents with the Progressive HR audience. Greatly appreciate you and all the resources and the knowledge you have to share. And then lastly, of course, I wanted to thank our audience. Thank you for joining us today. We know you have lots going on, and it's just such an honor that you've chosen to spend this hour with us. So thank you. We are going to go ahead and go into those last comments really quickly. So Courtney says, I use AI to help boost marketing for our open positions and programs. Absolutely great use. Oops, sorry, Courtney. There we go. I love it when the comments move so fast that I can't tell which comments are. I go to click one and it's a different one. So that's Courtney again. So apologies there. Okay, I will get there. I promise. I promise I'll get there. Okay. So Barry says, AI prompt engineers managing by expectation rather than drowning in the minutia. Love that, Troy Vermillion. Michael says, talk with Troy many times. If you're interested in anything, he will make time for you if he can. Oh, wow, Troy, fan club. And then going back to the question I had asked, what do you use AI for? Learning content development. And I believe this is from Michael. No, I'm sorry, not Michael. Apologies again for that. We're just getting a lot of thank yous and thank you from everybody. Really appreciate it, everyone. We are actually over time now, so I'm unfortunately going to say goodbye because I just loved spending so much time with you guys. I just absolutely love you all. Have a wonderful day, rest of your day, and we'll get those resources to you. So thank you, everyone, and see you in April.
Bye.
Bye.